Welcome back to Secret Weapons. My name is Mark Johnston, and if this is your first time here, this is a YouTube channel where we do gear demos and reviews, as well as studio tips and tricks for leveling up your writing, playing, and production from the perspective of a guitar player working at a home studio. If that's the kind of thing that would appeal to you, I would love it if you hit that subscribe button and stick around for future videos. Today we are taking a look at the all-new Echonaut from Silktone amplifiers. So this is not remotely my first time talking about Silktone here on the channel. We have covered multiple of their guitar pedals here. We've taken a lighter look and featured some of the other larger wattage amplifiers that Silktone makes on the channel. We've also done a dedicated video on the Micronaut, this little 4-watt head right behind me on my left. The Micronaut is an amp that really took me by surprise. It is a 4-watt, single-ended, really excellent small format low wattage amplifier. I have used it on kind of small grab and go gigs a bunch of times and found that this amp holds up really well in the context of playing live on small stages. And today we're taking a look at its new big brother, the 1x10 combo version, the Echonaut. This is more than just an update to the head itself. While the same kind of core topology and everything is still there, the tonality of the Micronaut and the Echonaut as core amplifiers is basically the same. You now have it housed in a 1x10, and for the record, this is one of the best 10-inch speakers I've ever heard. It is a custom ceramic 10-inch that as you heard on that intro, we used on bass as well as all of our guitars. And it is surprisingly responsive down to, I think, something like 45 hertz. It's a really robust, low-end capable combo right here, but also now featuring a really killer spring reverb. The reverb is a capacitor coupled, which means no transformer, single tube reverb that is incredibly reactive to the amp circuit itself, allowing it to be really, really massive or really subtle, depending on how you have the rest of the amp set up. But it also is set up in such a way that there is no tone suck. It does not detract from the kind of amp circuit itself. And you'll hear that in these sound samples. You can really crank that reverb all the way shy of just full wet chaos and have all of the character and presence and body of your amp stay perfectly intact, which is what you want when it comes to reverb in a small format like this. Nearly everything else about the Echonaut can be seen in the Micronaut. You still have that very simple layout of volume and tone. The tone is going to be a tilt EQ from Noon, and the volume is going to be coupled in with that modes 1 and 2 switch. Mode 1, as with many Silktone amplifiers across their entire line, is going to be more of a pedal platform. It's going to be softer in its response. It's going to excel at clean tones and lower gain tones, and in this context can get incredibly quiet while still having pretty solid tone to it. And in mode 2, you're going to go from harmonically rich, touch responsive with, spoiler alert, maybe some of the best clean tones in this thing at the low end of mode 2, but all the way up through some of the most splattery and chaotic amp gain sounds in something this size. Over the last several months, I've actually gotten to play multiple iterations of the Echonaut during its development as a byproduct of Charles and Silktone HQ being just down the street from my studio right now. I have to say that I am really impressed with where he has gotten this amplifier. I am a fan of the original Micronaut, and everything that has gone into the development of the Echonaut has been really impressive. The reverb sounds excellent, and the kind of low gain mode 2 stuff is some of the best sub 10 watt amplifier tone I've heard from anything in my collection, and I find that to be really impressive. So let's go ahead and throw a couple of mics in front of it and give it a listen. So for these sound samples, we're gonna go ahead and run directly into the front of the amp. I am playing my Bunting Melody Queen T with a Telecaster bridge and a gold foil neck into the Silktone directly, which is mic'd up with an SM57 and a Royer 121 ribbon. We're gonna start off with the reverb at minimum, so totally dry. And we've got gain at noon, tone at noon as well. And we are going to be in mode 1 right now, which is going to be the lower gain, more kind of pedal platformy clean side of the amplifier. And from there, let's go ahead and play with the tone control before we start playing with the kind of gain structure of the Echonaut. It's going to be kind of like a tilt EQ. So you have a ton of low end and a ton of high end on tap here, depending on which way you go with it. So counterclockwise from noon, let's go ahead and darken up the signal. And back to about halfway. And back to flat or at noon. Let's go ahead and roll clockwise past noon. Going to start rolling off our low end and accentuating our high end. Just shy of maximum. And tone completely maximized, so fully bright. Back to about halfway between noon and maximum on the treble side of the tilt. From there, let's go ahead and roll our gain down. We're going to take our tone to just north of noon. So if this is noon proper, we're going to go to just there, just for a tiny bit more brightness and a tiny bit more bite out of the amplifier. Let's go ahead and roll down gain on mode 1 to kind of lower gain settings, and then we will gain it up at our preamps in order to make sure that we're not getting too weak of a signal hitting our microphones themselves. Before we gain our preamps up to kind of compensate for the loss of level coming out of the amplifier, for some context, we will now solo up the overhead mic that we're using, which is pointed at me, which is pretty close to the amplifier. And you can hear kind of the volume difference between the amplifier and my voice at this exact moment. not a very loud amplifier when you've got it set nice and quiet like this. So we've got the gain nice and low. We've gone ahead and gained up our preamps, our Warm Audio 273 analog preamps to kind of compensate. Let's give these super low gain sounds on the Silktone a listen. And once again, that sound is coming from an amp that is comparatively this loud to my voice. So it says a lot, I think. So let's go ahead and run through the higher end of the low gain stage on the Echonaut. So we're still in mode 1 right now, and we're going to go ahead and walk the gain from just above noon to kind of maxed out for this side of the amp. All right, let's reset that tone control and that volume back to both of them being just above noon for a sound kind of like this. And let's go ahead and give a listen to the reverb in mode 1. The reverb is going to take on a different character in mode 1 and mode 2 based on how hard you are hitting the front of it as a non-transformer single tube reverb. Reverb north of noon. Reverb totally maxed out. So something I want to highlight as we go into mode 2 right now, and that is mode 2 on all Silktone devices tends to be the really raucous, splattery thing, kind of what happens when you take a single-ended amplifier model like the Echonaut or the Micronaut or even the parallel and the flagship Silktone amplifier, where it becomes really splattery and chaotic and distorted. But the Echonaut actually has a really great sounding clean tone that I think I might actually prefer in this device in terms of clean tones in mode 2 when you take that gain really, really low. So you can actually get a different character to the kind of treble with a little bit more bite and a little bit more kind of clean tone toothiness in mode 2 at low gain. So that's what we're going to look at right now. We'll play with the tone control a little bit, but also I want to look at how mode 2 pushes more energy into the reverb tank as well, giving you access to really massive, lush, kind of edge of breakup reverb tones with what would conventionally be the more aggressive and splattery version of the amp. So reverb totally out, tone back at noon, gain nice and low. Let's roll that tone up a little bit to carve some of those lows out. Crank that verb. Gain that up just a bit, take us further into that kind of breakup and roll down our reverb back to about halfway. Mode 2 gain at noon. We're officially getting into amp breakup territory here. let's go ahead and wrap this up with pushing out some really crazy amounts of gain from this thing. Once again, we're not using any pedals, no boosts, no compressors, no distortion pedals. This is tele-style electronics into the mode 2, pushing past noon into total splattery amp kind of territory. There is a kind of like point of feedback in the reverb where if you crank the mode 2 gain and the reverb, you can create this kind of like feedback loop where the reverb itself will oscillate and run away, but that can be reset by introducing new audio. So let's go ahead and give that a listen really quick. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for sticking around to the end. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of the Echonaut and what you think of, let's say, low wattage, sub 10 watt amps in general. Are they the perfect small gig amps? Are they the perfect bedroom amps? Why or why not? I look forward to hearing from you in those comments down below, and I will see you in the next one.